What is going on, everybody? This is KWC Tek coming at you with another video today. I hope you guys are doing well. I've had a fantastic yet very busy week. And what I mean by that is Borderlands 3 came out last Friday. I'm sure some of you guys probably have been playing it, considering some of my fan base is actually for Borderlands, and I've done a good amount of videos in the past about it. But today, I wanted to sit down with you and kind of discuss how I'm feeling about it. I finally got through the campaign. I promise there's not going to be any spoilers. I promise. If there is, I will bleep it out or I will cut it out depending on how short or long my tangent goes. But bear with me here. I'm going to roll the intro and we're going to dive right into it. All right. So last Friday, well, technically Thursday night for me, I sat and waited and waited and waited some more, and finally, Borderlands 3 unlocked on my system. I did do digital, so I already had it pre-downloaded and everything else. But I hopped into it, man, and I'll tell you what, I had that entire weekend was kind of a blur. I had a lot of stuff going on at home, and I was desperately just trying to sit down and play the game. So every night I ended up staying up until probably about 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I'd have to get up at 7 a.m. and do it all over again. By the end of the weekend, I'm sure you can tell I was freaking exhausted. um, but anyways. I got through the campaign. I got through all the mechanics. I got through everything that the game had to offer. And let me tell you what, it was it was one heck of a ride. I'm still speechless, and I right now I'm actually about I just restarted True Vault Hunter mode, level 43, and I do play as Moze as my main, so I don't necessarily. I would imagine once I'm done with this playthrough and I get through Proving Grounds and all the everything else, I probably will start another character because I've been really keeping a close eye on Zane. It was kind of a mixture for me. I kind of either wanted to do Zane or Moze. I ended up going with Moze because personally, for me, Vladoff is my favorite manufacturer, and I'm sure, as you guys know, from the trailer, the character trailers, Moze is actually a Vladoff army soldier, and she has her mech, and that's where that came from. So I started off with Moze, and I got into the game, and let me tell you what, it felt. It's hard for me to pinpoint exactly what it is. It feels more modern than the previous games did. I speaking for myself, I'm a Borderlands 1 fan, like through and through. Like that is I claimed up until this release that Borderlands 1 was my favorite game thus far. Borderlands 2 was very good. Don't get me wrong, it was a very good game. I have a lot of fond memories of it. It just didn't speak to me like the first one did. And I think Borderlands 3 kind of fit that mesh where it kind of put some of the lore and the love of everything from Borderlands 1 into 3, into the package of 3. Like it felt very good. It felt like it hit both markets because a lot of people are divided down the middle as to whether or not they prefer the first one or the second one. Now, the what I explained in a prior video, and I'm gonna throw a card up right now to me talking about the game the game reveal back in April when they announced that Borderlands 3 was indeed coming this year, and in September. It was more or less me just going over what they highlighted were the new mechanics and some of the um, things that the game had to offer, not necessarily spoilers, but more or less mechanics. So a lot of vendors in this game, uh, just like the previous, they all have their quirks and what kind of their signature firing types that kind of implement how you play the game. So like your play style, for me personally, I love let off guns. So they're usually known to have a high rate of fire. I usually use Vladoff guns in my assault rifles, SMGs, sometimes, especially this game, pistols. I don't really like their sniper rifles all that much because I prefer Jacobs. I prefer the high damage, and that is the nature of a sniper rifle. That's just what it is. But the assault rifles are flawless, and there actually was a Jacobs assault rifle that I ended up using for quite some time, and it reminded me of M1 Grand. It had 5 shots, and when it got to the 5 shots, it did the brass clicking, and it sounded so good. And I held on to it for so long just because I loved the noise of it so much. And it reminded me of boot camp because boot camp they give you the M1 Grands to more or less practice with unloading, reloading, tearing the gun down. I digress from that. But the gun mechanics are phenomenal. One thing I didn't like was the Maliwan guns. They changed it very drastically from the second game. Whereas the second game, they're still known as like the elemental weapon. That is kind of their shtick that they got going for them. But they're more charged weapons now. They're more like plasma weapons. Some of their SMGs shoot a straight beam of whatever elemental damage it does. Others do. Most of these guns, what I'm trying to get at is most of their guns do charge ups. And I'm not a big fan of that. It's just not how I like to play the game. I can definitely see where some people would benefit from that. But the guns are like from the previous games. It was very you couldn't really tell other than the aesthetics of the weapon as to what manufacturer it was. Unless it was Maliwan. Maliwan you could always tell because it had high elemental damage. But in this game they made it so drastic. Like Vladoff guns, they usually have an underbarrel attachment, either a shotgun or basically another barrel, so you could line 2 barrels up at one time and shoot them together. Doubles the ammo consumption. Again, faster fire rate. So it was kind of cool to see that Jacobs is still basically one hit, high damage, no elemental damage, but high normal damage, bullet damage per se, and high projectile speeds. Uh, Maliwan, Hyperion, their big thing now is shields. So if you have a Maliwan gun, let's say you have an SMG, pistol, sniper rifle, assault rifle, rocket launcher, whatever, they usually have a shield that deploys. And that shield, what it does is when you aim down the sights, the shield usually has anywhere between like 800 and 1500 health. And that kind of helps protect the sway that you get when you get hit by a gun when you're looking down a sight. So that's kind of cool. I like theirs for their SMGs. Their sniper rifles are very nice. I know I'm sticking to specific weapons, and those are the ones that I use and I got used to. So I apologize for that if I'm missing a subclass that you really liked. Skill trees were impeccable. Massive improvement over the previous games. They feel more. I guess I should say involved. They make more of a change than they ever have in the previous games, where you dedicate your points, and a lot of the things that you can invest your points in. If you decide that it's not working out for you, or things aren't moving along too well in the game, you can respec. And that's what the developers, even Gearbox, says to do. Is respecing is very important, especially if you're playing solo and you get to a point where you're kind of stuck. I got stuck for a while at a boss called Kilovolt. It's not really a spoiler, but Kilovolt is one of the earlier bosses that you run into. I won't go too much into it, but he uses heavy electric and shields, and it just took me a really long time to deal with him on my own. It's more of a co-op effort versus going solo at it. So that took me a while. I'm very avid about doing my first couple playthroughs on any Borderlands, playing it alone. I like playing the game solo. I know I'm the minority. It's okay. So yeah, I mean, respecking is major, and the cool thing now too is, especially with like Moe's, my mech can have instead. My mech is my special, right? So Iron Bear is the special, but what you can do now is you can actually utilize both arms of the gun and using two trees. If you use two trees, or even if you want to use one tree, each arm has its own weapon. So, like, if you wanted to go down, I apologize, but I don't know the actual skill trees here. But if you go down one or the other trees, you get two weapons, one on one hand and one on the other. So, me personally, I went down the blue tree, which deals more in like explosives, and then I went down the red tree, which deals more in damage and shields. And basically, what that gave Iron Bear was a high precision rifle, and it also gave him, for the grenade or the explosion portion, gave him a rocket launcher on the other side. And you could choose between a grenade launcher and the claw. I know the claw showed up. It was kind of like it's kind of like a giant mech Wolverine claw. Sorry, my voice broke there for a second, but it's okay. But that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. I really appreciated that. That was awesome. And every sub weapon that you do get, you can add a effect to it, and those are unlocked as you get further down the tree. I felt like that was that was pretty it's pretty awesome of Gearbox to do. It adds a lot more customizability. It adds a lot more like builds that people can do and try out, and like a hell of a lot more options. But at the end of the day, everybody is different. Everybody has a different play style, and Borderlands 3 caters to that very well in this title. Very much so, better than the previous titles that came out. So that in its own right is pretty awesome. Another big mechanic is, or not big mechanic they came out with, but fast travel is a thing now. Fast travel is amazing. You can every zone, every planet has multiple fast travel points they can go to. It makes traversing missions 10 times, 1,000 times easier than it ever has. You don't need to drive across a map all the way to get to the next map just to drive across 75% of it just to get to your mission. Now you can fast travel to any zone that you want. Most zones have 3 to 4 fast travel points now. So it's pretty awesome. Another thing I did see is that vending machines are a little less abundant than they ever have been. So I found myself, and I have seen this a lot, especially in Reddit and things along those lines, where people are saying that your inventory gets full and you're stuck in a story mission and you're like halfway through it and there's no fast travel points, but I need to get to a vending machine so I can sell my inventory of things that I don't need so I can pick up the rest of this inventory. And it just becomes a point where you start dropping things that you picked up way at the beginning because they're low leveled, or their item score just isn't that good. And it kind of it brings the idea of Borderlands, because at the end of the day, Borderlands' whole big thing, a big portion of it is shoot and loot, right? So they're the original looter shooters. Now you have this inventory system that doesn't really cater as well as the other. It doesn't really improve upon the previous systems. It actually kind of makes it a little bit worse. But inventory management was always kind of a big thing, right? You always wanted to carry around a set of weapons with you. You have your 4 weapons and your grenades and stuff like that. But then you have some people might carry around legendary weapons. I did that for a while, especially with Borderlands 1, because there was no bank system. Where you're coming across these guns, and it's hard because you kind of have to pick and choose what you can pick up and drop, because there's not an overabundant of vending machines like the previous 2 games had. So yeah, I mean, the areas were bigger. They might just be bigger than they ever were, and that is a very stout point that these areas are 10 times larger than they were in previous games. I mean, Borderlands 2, some of the areas kind of got close to some of these other areas that are in Borderlands 3, but they didn't kind of suffice, or basically give us a lot of vending machines so we can go and sell our inventory that we don't need or we want to just sell. Just because there's a lot of loot that is dropped in this game. There's a lot of loot. I feel like the drop rates are much higher than they were in Borderlands 2 or Borderlands 1 for that matter. But they made it so I feel like they made the system that it drops more frequently, but you have a much lower chance to get a blue, a purple, or an orange. But yeah, so that's something I feel like they can change. I feel like it's something that they can add, definitely add into future patches into the game. Um, some big things, that have changed are, like I said, the fast travel systems, the weapons, manufacturers are much better. So these big changes have made this game vastly better. And with Unreal Engine 4, a lot of the environments look they look so much more lush. They feel so much more alive than they ever have been. And taking a look at Borderlands 1 to going to Borderlands 2, that was a massive jump. Borderlands 2 to Borderlands 3 was even more of a massive jump. So you can just imagine the differences that from like even 1 to 3 made. It's massive, and it's really one thing I really did enjoy was enemy health bars. Enemy health bars look fantastic. They're big. You can't miss them. They made it so much more legible, and how the animations for how the health goes down is awesome as well. So that was awesome. So I'm happy to see that these changes have been made to benefit for us. One of the things I did run across, and I don't know if this is a bug, I think this is all across the board, but there's a pretty big performance issue going on with the menu system. Where opening it up, it slows down, it kind of silhouettes itself, and it kind of is a little sluggish about it, and it doesn't transition into the actual gameplay. It only really does it within the menu system. So it's something that can be patched. It's something that is easily going to be fixed, and I am fairly certain Paul Sage has said that within the next patch or so, within the next week or two, they're going to be justifying that and giving us a fix. So that way, it's kind of seamless across the board, and quote unquote from Paul Sage, he just wants us to have joy out of the game, and he did that. Gearbox has definitely delivered upon that. The game is amazing. I'm having a freaking blast with it, and even though I'm in true Vault Hunter mode, there's an endless amount of things going on, and I'm sure you've seen before the game even released, they talked about Mayhem mode, and Mayhem mode is unlocked when you complete a campaign. So when I completed the normal campaign on normal mode, and didn't hop into true Vault Hunter mode, and this is one thing that I wanted to touch on, and I haven't really read too much on it, but Mayhem mode doesn't unlock until you complete the campaign. Um, Now, you might be saying, okay, well then I can transition into true Vault Hunter mode. I thought the same thing, and I did that. But from what I'm reading, is Mayhem mode for true Vault Hunter mode doesn't unlock until the end of true Vault Hunter mode's campaign, and that. I don't know of any loop around right now, and I hope there is, because I would like to play the campaign in True Vault Hunter mode with Mayhem on, so that way I have a higher chance of getting better loot drops. I have more of a challenge. I'm not saying it's not challenging now. I'm saying I like heavy challenge. Like when the original Doom refresh came out, I immediately hopped into nightmare mode and did that. I like that initial challenge. I like the satisfaction that comes from completing something, especially in that example, completing something where I feel like I'm not just steamrolling through the game. I want a heavy challenge. I want to feel this, satisfaction, and be stuck into a progression that moves slower, and I can actually focus more on, even though I'm dying more, I can focus more on the story and what's going on and actually living in that moment versus me steamrolling through it and then getting to another stage or another area, and they mentioned something that was obviously mentioned prior and I missed it because I was just steamrolling through it and dialogues were just flying across the screen. Um, yeah, I mean, I kind of wish I could do Mayhem, and if you guys know of a way to turn on Mayhem for the campaign, so I can redo the campaign with Mayhem on, let me know. Hit up the comment section down below. Um, but all in all, me playing the game, I've had a fantastic time with it, and for me, it's definitely a candidate for Game of the Year this year, and I think with Doom Eternal coming out, these games that I have heavily invested in for this year. Um, I'm excited to see what Game Awards is going to be. It's going to be pretty cutthroat this year because there's so many AAA releases, so many good games that came out. Just to see this competition in this market, it makes me very, very happy because not only are we pushing technology to its boundaries, we as consumers are getting a much better product, something that is more memorable. Um, Granted, games, back then, years ago, were memorable, yeah, but end game content really wasn't a thing back then. You just restarted the game. You deleted your save file and restarted it over. Now we're getting these things where it's like, yeah, they have games as services, but Borderlands is not really a games as service. It's more as a completionist game, right? So it's like your next Devil May Cry. It's like those next games that, yeah, you're not getting content all the time, but you're getting it as you play through the game. You're finding things that you missed in your first playthrough. You're getting more of a difficulty out of it. And, with that being said, I will make another video probably within the next 2 weeks or so about story and what's going on with that. Sorry, I'm sure you hear dogs. Um, but I think there's a bright future ahead for Borderlands 3, especially with new content coming down the road. But with that being said, I'm gonna get out of your hair. KWC Tek out.